Welcome to Culture Alley Mandarin. 你好, this is Basic Mandarin Lesson 12. Let's start by reviewing what we learned in the previous lesson. How many or a few becomes 几, while the measure word for number of family members becomes 口. Person or people becomes 人 and gets translated to 和. And finally, one or one item to 一个. Good job! Now let's review the family conversations. How many people are there in your family translates to 你家有几口人? There are 4 people in my family translates to 我家有4口人. My dad, mom, an elder brother, and me becomes 我爸爸、妈妈、一个哥哥和我. What about your family becomes 你家有几口人? There are 5 people in my family becomes 我家有5口人. Likewise, my dad, mom, older brother, older sister, and me becomes 我爸爸、妈妈、哥哥、姐姐和我. Great! Now that we've reviewed our earlier lessons, let's move on to today's lesson. Today, we will learn about occupations. Let's learn a few more occupations such as doctors, engineer, etc., and ask people about their work. So let's get started. Today's conversation in English goes like this. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I am also very good.
This is my father.
What does your father do?
My father is a lawyer. And you?
I am an engineer.
What does your mother do?
My mother is a housewife.
Wonderful.
You will notice that some of the sentences mentioned have been covered before, while others are new. Let's go through the sentences we already know. Can you recall this conversation? How are you is translated as 你好吗? While not bad, how are you is translated as 不错,你好吗? Similarly, I am also very good becomes 我也很好. And this is my father gets translated to 他是我爸爸. Great! We will now move on to occupational conversation. Let's learn how to ask people about their occupations. Let's learn to ask, what does your father do? For this, we need to learn 2 new words, to do and work. Let's take a look. To do becomes 做, while work becomes 工作. What we literally ask in Mandarin is, what work does your father do? Here's the breakup for the same. What becomes 什么. Work gets translated as 工作. Your translates to 你. Father, as we know, is 爸爸. And do becomes 做. While the question in English is, what work does your father do? In Mandarin, what we really ask is, your father does what work? Thus, what does your father do gets translated to 你爸爸做什么工作? That literally translates to, your father does what work? In response to this question, we can say, my father is a lawyer. Here is the word-for-word translation of, my father is a lawyer. My is 我. Father is 爸爸. Is changes to 是. And lawyer becomes 律师. Thus, my father is a lawyer becomes 我爸爸是律师. That literally means, my father is lawyer, as articles are not translated in Mandarin. Let's take up another sentence. What work do you do? Here is the breakup for this sentence. What becomes 什么. Work becomes 工作. You gets converted to 你, and do becomes 做. Thus, what do you do is 你做什么工作? That literally means, you do what work? In response to what do you do, we can say, I am an engineer. Let's take a look. I am an engineer translates to 我是工程师. Remember that an is not translated, as Mandarin has no articles. Let's look at the pronunciation of engineer. Gong is pronounced using a high-level tone, like gong. Cheng is pronounced using a mid-rising tone, like cheng. And we already know how to say shi. So let's try and say it all together. It's 工程师. Can you say that? 工程师. Great! Alright, it's time for a short quiz. Let's see if you remember what we've learned till now. How do we say, my father is a lawyer? Is it 我爸爸是律师? Or is it 爸爸做什么工作? My father is a lawyer is translated as 我爸爸是律师. Do you remember what 工作 means? Is it work, or doctor, or to do? 工作 means work. Great! Now let's review what we've learned so far. What does your father do is translated to 你爸爸做什么工作? My father is a lawyer translates as 我爸爸是律师. While what do you do becomes 你做什么工作? And finally, I am an engineer becomes 我是工程师. Good! Let's move on. The sentence I am a can be filled in using a lot of different professions. Let's learn a few of them now. Let's start with doctor. I am a doctor translates as 我是 医生, where 医生 is pronounced using the first tone. Similarly, she is a manager gets translated as 她是经理, where 经理 means manager. 经 uses the first tone, also known as the high level tone, while 理 uses the third tone, also known as the falling rising tone. Let's talk about an accountant. He is an accountant becomes 他是会计, where 会计 means accountant. 会 means aggregate, while 计 means to compute or calculate. Thus, 会计 becomes accountant. 会 and 计 are both pronounced with a falling tone, also known as the fourth tone. Let's hear you say 会计. Great! In the same way, I am retired gets converted to 我是退休了. Let's look at the tones and pronunciation of the word retired. 退 carries the falling tone or the fourth tone. 休 carries the high level tone or the first tone. 了 carries the neutral tone or the fifth tone. Let's hear you say 退休了. That's great! Now let's review the professions we've learned so far. I am a doctor translates to 我是医生. She is a manager translates to 她是经理. While he is an accountant becomes 他是会计. And finally, I am retired is translated as 我是退休了. Good. Let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the last part of our conversation. We'll learn to ask, what does your mother do? Just like what does your father do, what does your mother do in translation becomes 你妈妈做什么工作? Response of the same can be my mother is a housewife, which becomes 我妈妈是家庭主妇, where 家庭主妇 means housewife. 家庭主妇 becomes housewife by combining 家庭, which means family member, and 主妇, which means wife. Now let's look at the tones required to pronounce housewife in Mandarin. 家庭 uses the high level tone on A and a mid-rising tone on I, while 主妇 uses the falling rising tone on the first U and a falling tone on the second U. Let's hear you say 家庭主妇. Very good. Did you notice? 家庭主妇 is the first word we've learned that uses all four tones. Can you repeat that? It's 家庭主妇. Great! Once again, it's quiz time. Let's see if you remember what we've learned so far. How do we say manager? Is it 律师 or 经理 or 医生? We say manager as 经理. How do we say housewife in Mandarin? Do we say it as 家庭主妇? Or is it 工程师 Or does it become 退休了? The correct way of saying housewife is 家庭主妇. Hope you got that one right. How do we say I am an accountant in Mandarin? Do we say 我是医生? Or is it 我是会计? Or do we say 我是经理 instead? I am an accountant becomes 我是会计 in Mandarin. Did you get that one right? Good! Here is what we learned today. Let's have a look at the conversation in English and its conversion in Mandarin. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I am also very good.
This is my father.
What does your father do? Now let's see what this sounds like in Mandarin. 你好吗?
不错。你好吗?
我也很好。
他是我爸爸。
你爸爸做什么工作? Good job! Let's review the second part of our conversation. Here it is in English.
My father is a lawyer. And you?
I am an engineer.
What does your mother do?
My mother is a housewife.
Wonderful.
And now we'll see it in Mandarin.
我爸爸是律师，你呢？
我是工程师。
你妈妈做什么工作？
我妈妈是家庭主妇。
太好了。
All right, now let's go over the occupations one more time. Teacher becomes 老师. Lawyer becomes 律师. Doctor translates to 医生. And engineer is translated as 工程师. Similarly, manager is 经理. Accountant becomes 会计. Housewife translates as 家庭主妇. And retired is 退休了. That's all for today. Hope you remembered all of them. And now comes the most exciting part of our journey, the culture leaf. Today's culture leaf, we shall talk about tetraphobia. You may find it interesting to know that tetraphobia, or aversion to the number 4, is common in China. The Chinese word for 4 in pinyin is 4, which sounds quite similar to the word for death, which is 死, in many varieties of Chinese. Special care may be taken to avoid occurrences or reminders of the number 4 during festive holidays or when a family member is sick. Similarly, 14, 24, 42, etc. are also to be avoided due to the presence of the digit 4 in these numbers. Take a look at this picture of an elevator in Shanghai with floors 4, 13, and 14 missing. In the next lesson, we will learn about measure words. Hope you enjoyed your lesson today. See you at the alley for the next one.